Hello, my name's Jasper, welcome back to Buckle Up and to this, the all-new Hyundai Kona. And I'm here today to tell you why I think this is an excellent family car. Now, the first reason I think this is an excellent family car is the styling. Now, the previous generation of Kona was pretty good looking, but this takes good design language and great styling to a whole other level. It's so modern, sleek, and so premium looking. You've got this gorgeous light bar that curves all the way across the front of the car. The whole car actually at the front is relatively smoothly curved for efficiency. This is the N-line trim, so that means you get some extra sculpting in the bumper down here, as well as these fancy bits of gloss black plastic, and of course your N-line badge. Now you've got some grills down at the front, as well as your sensor for the active safety systems of the car, and then up here it's actually kind of blanked off for efficiency. Now this model is available as an fully electric vehicle, as a hybrid, or as a pure petrol. I have the hybrid here, but if you have the electric model, you have a little bit more blanked off at the front in the name of efficiency. This has a bit more aggression behind it, which I really like. One thing that's quite unique about this car is the positioning of the headlamp cluster. It's very far out to the side and actually quite low down. And what that means is you're less likely to dazzle other drivers, but it's also quite a unique styling point at the front of this car because you don't have the headlamps in a traditional place. They're nicely positioned down here. Indicators are built into this cluster. The lights themselves, the headlamps are full LEDs, but you do have a traditional incandescent bulb for the indicator on the front here. This light bar is an LED and it looks fantastic at night. You of course have your large satin finish Hyundai badge on the front, and let's see what it's like down the side. The side of the Kona is kind of recognisable from the previous generation in terms of general shape. However, this car has grown, and that means that it's a little bit more practical, and also it's taking a bit of influence from its larger sibling, the Tucson. And you'll see that in the back section here, where you've got a little bit more interesting creasing and bulbous design than the previous generation of Kona had. I really like the styling down the side of this car. It's very unique in what is quite a bland segment. This just has a little bit about it that makes it something different. I absolutely love the alloy wheels on this N-line trim. These are an 18-inch design, and I think the combination of diamond cut finish as well as this matte finish plastic within the centre of the alloy is fantastic. Nice little N badge in the centre as well. Of course, your N-line badge here on the quarter panel, quite a muscular, chunky looking wheel arch, contrast mirror cap, door handle with keyless entry, these creases coming up the side, as well as a gloss black plastic side skirt that really kind of lifts the car and makes it feel a little bit more off-roady and chunky. I love the rear quarter panel with its creasing and smooth curves. It looks fantastic. And then round at the back, the great styling of the Kona continues with a light cluster that kind of mimics that of the front, a fantastic light bar that curves all the way across the boot. You've got a very smooth back end with the lettering Kona spelled out quite large below the Hyundai badge. I love the rear diffuser on here. It does give it a really nice sporty touch. And then with this being the N-line trim, you get a nice pair of twin chrome tipped exhausts. You've got your hybrid badge on here because this is the hybrid model, and you've just got some nice little elements of styling. Now, I don't particularly like the paint colour on this model. I do think it's a bit primary. However, I do think the design of this car does look good with a lighter colour paint because you get the nice contrast from the light bar across the back. You've got a small spoiler that juts out over the rear boot, and something I didn't mention at the side, you've got roof rails on this as well as a contrast shark fin antenna. It's a really well styled car, and it just looks so modern and ready for the future age. And of course, with this being available as an EV, it is ready for that future age. We're back with hopefully better weather. The additional size that the Kona has grown by does mean that practicality within this car has increased massively. So the boot is a wonderful boxy shape with a load lip that's actually at such a great access height. Now, spec dependent, this boot will give you up to 466 litres of space, which is actually really impressive for a car in this class. And it's such a flat, boxy space that it's really, really practical. Now, you've got a load floor that's actually adjustable, and that means that if you want a little bit more space within the boot, you can adjust that, drop it down, and that just gives you a little bit more space there, but not a flat opening. Underneath, you've got your tyre mobility kit and a bit of a, it's not a tyre well, there's no spare wheel, but there is some additional storage underneath the boot floor. In terms of features, you've got dedicated kind of small cubbies either side, a couple of curry hooks and some tie down points. So this boot does give you everything you would need in terms of practicality. One other thing that's brilliant is when you fold the rear seats down, if this floor is in its upper position, you do have a flat floor all the way through, which is great. There is also somewhere you can put the parcel shelf if you've got something taller to put in the boot, but not so bulky that this needs to come out. So you can actually unlatch it and drop it down against the back of the back seats, and that gives you just a bit more height, but means you don't have to find somewhere to put the parcel shelf. I am very impressed with the space available in this boot. And to top it all off, it's electrically operated, so that extra bit of practicality isn't missing. Now, obviously practicality back there is important, but if you're buying a family car, you want some practicality in here too. And the all-new Kona is great at that as well. So I have got a fantastic amount of knee room and headroom sitting in the back of this car. For scaling purposes, I am 173-ish centimetres tall, so that's about 5'7.5", 5'8" on a very good day with my hair. And I am more than comfortable enough back here. So headrest up, acres of knee room, especially if I'm sitting behind somebody as short as myself. But what I will say is with this space, somebody taller than I am would be comfortable back here. The seats are high enough up, and that's partly because, this being the hybrid model, some batteries will be underneath here. But also what that means is I've got plenty of under thigh support, and I can tuck my feet neatly under the chair in front of me. I've got a nice armrest, which is a hard plastic, but it's well appointed. I've got electric windows and 3-stage heated seating on both of the outer seats back here. This will seat 3 pretty comfortably, and there is a small amount of a transmission tunnel down here, but it's not so big that it'll be uncomfortable and you'll have to jostle for position. Somebody larger than I am will be comfortable in the back of this car. Now, material wise, the seats in this are fabric. This is the N-line trim, which is actually low mid spec. The trims available start with Advance, then you have N-line, N-line S and Ultimate. And with the N-line you just get cloth seats, but they do have a nice bit of contrast red stitching around some of the elements. And what I will say, this fabric is very well appointed, it's very nice and comfortable, it feels pretty good, and yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this trim. If you went for an N-Line S, you'd get standard leather and Alcantara on the seats, which would be very premium, but this is absolutely enough. Now, practicality back here is also pretty good because you've got a lot of space. So there's a cargo net on the back of each of the front seats, door pockets large enough for my Hyundai water bottle to drop into, and I've got a little cubby by the grab handle, and this door pocket will actually, you know, you'd get a bigger bottle of water in than this, so you might squeeze in a 750ml bottle just down there. There's a small cubby in the centre section here, which is surprisingly deep, definitely enough to drop one's phone in. Another thing to mention, if you are looking for a family vehicle, is both of the outer seats have ISOFIX points on them, and there aren't any covers. You just poke the connection points through the 2 sections of the seat and it'll click into place. So that's great. You've also got an armrest in the centre with 2 cup holders in it, so you've got plenty of space, plenty of practicality, and plenty of things for a family to use back here. Let's see if that's the same case up front. Well, of course it's great up here. You didn't think Hyundai would make the back seats better than the front, did you? So, in here, in terms of practicality, I've got a pair of excellent cup holders in the centre that you can actually fold away if you don't want to use them. A little push button system. We've seen it in a couple of models and it's really versatile. I can also drop my water bottle in the door pockets, and these are fantastically large, and there's definitely enough space down here for some de-icer or a scraper for winter as well. Same little cubby holder by the grab handle. Really well appointed materials for the door pulls, and actually that's a running theme in here as well. But we'll finish practicality first, because you've got a shelf above the glove box, which is a great size, certainly big enough for this wildly chunky owner's manual. And some other things to be kept down there. I've got a Qi wireless charging pad for my phone in the centre here. If I'm not using these as cup holders, this is a really big space, and even if I've got both cup holders open, there's more than enough space to drop a few bits and pieces down here, keys, things you need regular access to as well. I've got an armrest, which is the perfect height. I've got an armrest in the centre and on the door card, and they are both very comfortable. Underneath this, I've got a small little extra tray at the top and a really quite tall cubby underneath the actual armrest itself, which is fantastically practical. This is such a well thought out interior. Everything falls so easily to hand, and it's really all where you'd expect it to be. I've got the same pair of large infotainment screens in me that we're beginning to see in just about every Hyundai and Kia product on the market at the moment, and the graphics on these are no different to any other. They are exceptionally crisp, clear, very sharp, and so user-friendly as well. This system is really, I think, one of the best infotainment systems on the market at the moment, because it's so easy to interact with. One other great thing that they're very good at doing as well is keeping some physical buttons. So I've got a row of shortcut buttons for my infotainment system in the centre, and I've got physical climate controls as well. Dual zone up here. There are some vents in the back, but no controls back there. But up front, dual zone climate control. I've got 3-stage heated seats here, and I've got a 2-stage heated steering wheel, which just seems excessive, to be honest. A heated steering wheel is nice enough, but this one you can have either toasty or, wow, that's quite warm. Down here in the center console, I've got a USB Type-C connection for both charging and infotainment connection. I've got a separate USB Type-C just for charging. I've also got a 12-volt socket, which will deliver up to 180 watts of power if I want it to. All of these buttons are a nice kind of brushed metal finish plastic, and they do also have a satisfying click as you press them. The steering wheel is a polyurethane leather. I've got both flat and perforated sections. The steering wheel is a great shape. It's nice and skinny at the top, has good sculpting for where you would traditionally hold it, and then is nice and skinny again at the bottom. The centre of the steering wheel is Hyundai's newer 4 kind of dots to symbolise the H in Morse code, but here, because it's not an ionic product, which is electric, they aren't the square pixels, they are just dots. Especially given the Kona starts from just a hair under 25 grand and works its way up to, spec depending, just under 35 grand, this cabin feels really good. I do think Hyundai give you a lot for your money with this model. So now, the Kona may be all new on the outside and all new on the inside, but is the driving experience all new to match? Well, I have driven the previous generation of Kona, both in its petrol and in its fully electric forms, and I found both of those to be just a little bit choppy when it came to the ride. And what I can certainly say about this is that is not the case. This rides so beautifully. It's supremely smooth over bumps, remarkably well composed, and it just feels very planted and safe on the road, which is a wonderful thing. Now, obviously, part of the reason for that will be the fact that the car has grown slightly in size, but also you've got the additional benefit here with the hybrid system of having a multi-link rear suspension setup. All other variants of this that are currently on the market have a torsion beam rear, whereas this has independent multi-link suspension at the back. All models have got McPherson struts up front, so that's pretty standard for most modern cars. Now, alongside the excellent ride, what's the rest of the driving experience like? Well, it's just so easy. Everything about this car makes it such an easy thing to drive. So I've got absolutely heaps of safety systems and tech. I've got lane departure warning, I've got forward collision warning, brake assist, fully adaptive cruise control, speed sign recognition, auto speed limit warnings. I've got auto headlamps with high beam assist, I've got auto wipers, I've got basically everything automatic under the sun. The powertrain in this particular model is a hybrid one, and it is a traditional or self-charging hybrid. This particular hybrid pairs a 1.6 litre normally aspirated 4-cylinder engine with an electric motor. Now, these are both connected via a dual clutch box to the drive wheels, which are the front ones. The total power output of this hybrid setup is 141 PS with 265 Newton meters of torque being available, both of which are very respectable numbers, and the powertrain will take this car from 0 to 62 in 11.2 seconds. So it's not particularly fast, but it's more than enough to keep you up with traffic. Now, the engine being a 1.6 litre normally aspirated unit can be a little bit vocal at times, but that's only really if you're having to accelerate quickly. So for urban driving and motorway driving, the engine is more than fine just humming away in the background. This car is capable of driving for reasonable distances at, generally low speeds on battery power alone. So for most of my commute, I can actually get away with using the engine surprisingly little and see somewhere in the region of a ridiculously high 100 miles to the gallon on the way to work, but that's because a lot of it is downhill, although there are some sections of uphill motoring. On the way home though, mixed driving, I'm seeing typically somewhere in the region of 43 miles to the gallon, which is remarkably impressive for something of this size. If you really put your foot down, the engine does become a little bit more prominent and vocal, but it soon quietens down once you're up to speed. The active safety systems in this car really do make driving it a breeze, irrespective of the kind of road you're on. So you've got some level of lane keep assist and steering assist, as well as your adaptive cruise control and your speed limit recognition, all of which will help keep you safe and planted on the road as a driver. And that's something that's very important if you have a family and are wanting to cart them about. So for me, with the tech available in this car, I'd say it does an excellent job of keeping you safe and moving on the road. Now, the gearbox is a 6-speed dual clutch transmission, and you do have paddles behind the wheel here, which you can flick to make it change gear if you really want to. So that does offer you a little bit more engagement when it comes to driving. The drivetrain has got a couple of different modes as well. So it starts by default in eco mode, where it will obviously cut the engine in and out as much as possible to save you as much fuel as possible. And from there you can step it up into sport mode if you want a little bit more aggression, and that also weights up the steering. Now in sport mode you can use the paddles behind the wheel to change gears, and the 6-speed box responds pretty quickly, and it's certainly a very well executed drive system. The electric motor paired with this engine and gearbox does make driving it a breeze and very easy. There's also a snow mode, so in winter you can rest assured you should still be able to get moving even if the weather is a little bit inclement. There are two things that I don't particularly like about this driving experience. The first of which is how light the steering is. Now, it weights up a bit when you put the car in sport mode, however, it's completely devoid of feeling. Now, that's not a bad thing because the average buyer will not care. The average buyer does not, it doesn't matter to the average buyer what the feel through to their hands is like. However, for a keener driver, you might notice that it's a little bit numb and disconnected, and that's because the steering is an electric motor assisted system, and that obviously helps with all of the lane keep assist and auto steer functions that are available, but it does mean that you have another level of disconnection between yourself as a driver and what the wheels are doing. The second thing that I don't particularly like is the brake pedal feel, and that's because obviously with this being a hybrid system, the first element of your braking is going to be regenerative. So the first good section of pedal travel is purely regen, and it's only after you've pushed through that that the friction brakes actually start doing something. In terms of acceleration, if you can ignore the noise, it does feel relatively nippy, and that's obviously helped by the electric element of the hybrid system, because that torque from the electric motor comes in straight away and pulls you away from the line. So yes, 0 to 62 might take 11.2 seconds, but 0 to 30 feels pretty fast. Well, is the all-new Kona worth you spending some money on if you're a family? Absolutely. This car is excellent all round. It's so comfortable to drive, it offers you great practicality, great amounts of tech, and it looks fantastic. I really do think that Hyundai have knocked it out of the park with the update to this model. It was pretty well loved in the previous generation, and it's basically better all round now with this all new design. Everything from the tech on offer, the space on offer, and the styling on offer really is brilliant. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please do remember to let us know by liking, commenting and subscribing to the Buckle Up YouTube channel. We do post content like this 3 times a week, so if you have enjoyed it, there should be more where that came from. There are a few different ways you can support the channel. All of our social medias are linked in the description, and you can also become a member right here on YouTube or buy some of our lovely merch in our merch store. I will just again say thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.